This is called the present moment. The present moment is the point of balance. That's where balance is now. God is where? Present moment. Now. So balance has to be here now. Not some future time, but now. And so we have a story. And that story has a lot of past and a lot of future. This is a sign of infinity. It goes on forever. Never ending story in your head. And you keep on waiting for one day when, but in fact the story carries on. Always carries on. And it's full of all the things that happen to you in life and all the things that you're anticipating are going to happen to you. So that's the past and that's the future. And that's created by memory and anticipation. And it's constructed out of bricks, 60,000 of them a day. You know what bricks they are? What are they? Thoughts. And the sad thing is that 95% of these bricks that build this world for you, 95% are repetitive and negative. And the sad thing is that we create these bubbles. And we live as if these bubbles are more real than life. And life is only ever in the vertical plane which drops through the present moment, which is the now. And in the now you find life, you find love, you find peace, you find joy, you find a whole lot of other things. And most people live as if the story progressing from past to future is more important than the reality. If you are in love with someone and you're with them, where are you? You're not in your past and you're in your future. You don't care about their past and you don't care about the future. You're just here in the present moment with them. Yes or no?
Yes.
And you make the present moment more important than your story. And therefore, in that moment, you are in bliss. But very quickly, the mind comes in and obliterates this and creates another one of those. And what we do in relationship, and communication is all about relationships, so that's where it comes in with this training seminar, is you have you and you have the other. And initially what you find is you have this overlap and a sense of bliss between you. There's a sense of oneness. Our definition of love is a sense of oneness in your awareness. There's a sense of community, nothing separating you. But after a while you start having a threesome. Have any of you had threesomes? You all have, because we create this, which is the relationship. And this relationship then becomes more important. We make this number one, we make the other number two, and we make ourselves stone last.
Is that the label? Is that the label?
That is the role, the identity, the mind-made vehicle that you have. So we're in a relationship now. You have to do this, you should do that, you ought to do that. All these conditions. You see, this was an unconditional state. There were no conditions. There was a sense of isness in this moment. But the moment you go into here, you start communicating in terms of the roles and the expectations. And you communicate through something that the mind has created with boundaries. It's certain conditions, it's a conditional state. And you no longer have direct communication anymore. You don't communicate through presence. You communicate through past and future. And that kills love. Because time is the biggest killer of love. So if you're going back to this diagram, time happens in this bubble and in that bubble. This narrow point over here is when it's called it's a collapse process here. There's no time. It's timelessness. It's eternity. That's where eternity is. Not that line going forever in the future. That is eternity. When you align yourself with isness, the present moment, you're in a state of eternity. and there's no time there. And that's where love comes in. When you're aligned to the present moment, your heart opens. And that's when you experience love. And the moment you make your story, or the story, more important than love, you are living in a world, a matrix of your own creation, and it is ruled by that energy we spoke about this morning called false evidence appearing real, which is fear. And when you're in this, you're driven by your ego, and you look outside you for your fulfillment. The ego is always looking outside itself for security, outside itself for love, outside itself for fulfillment. That chocolate cake, surely you've got to do it. Anybody than me now? And the moment you do that, you are robbing yourself of life. Because life is in the present moment. And the moment you take, for example, stimulants, you stimulate your brain rhythms. This, to be here now, the predominant brain rhythm of being here now is called theta. Anyone heard of theta? I'll go through that in a moment. The predominant brain rhythm of these two is alpha and beta. And this is your own creation, and this is God's creation. And we make our creation more important than God's creation, and therefore we have anger, and we have guilt, and we have depression, and we have anxiety. All of that happens because we are holding on to a world in our head that we've created, and we've made the world we've created more important than the world God created. Sorry, I used that word again. Now, to sin. Anyone know the word sin? What does sin mean?
Do something wrong.
Right, what do you say?
Doing something wrong, yeah.
Okay.
Or something against your better judgment. I don't know.
Have you ever sinned?
Yes.
Well, you were born into sin, weren't you? Eh? Well, here, let's just draw this for you. Now there we have a target, right? Bit off center, we have a target. And right in the middle, we have the bullseye, right here. Now, when you shoot an arrow and you hit over there, you've missed the central mark, haven't you? If you shoot another arrow and you hit there, you've missed the mark. This mark in the middle is presence. It's the now. It's the divine essence of presence, which is God. If you want to put a word to it, you have to put that word to it. When you think a thought, you are in a bubble of your own creation. So you might be standing here, but in fact your mind has gone places. The word to sin means to miss the mark. That's the origin of the word sin. To miss the mark. The mark is presence, is reality, is isness, and you're missing it by being there and then. Like Roz, she's gone to Delta.
I'm dying as well. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Maybe you need to put the air conditioning on.
On cold?
Maybe.
On icy? No, Roz, you have a sleep. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Don't worry.
It's lovely to be here.
Roz has done a few of my workshops and she's never been to one. So now, what we do is we create in our awareness an attachment to something here in the past, or a projection into the future. If we project into the future, we may well experience anxiety. And if we attach to something in the past, we may well experience depression or anger. Depression is anger turned inwards. Depression is anger unsuppressed.
Unreachable goal.
The only way you heal that is not by understanding that, which is what the mind wants to do. Give me some more information. Let me have a few more thoughts here, and I'll sort it out. No, you come back home. You come back to presence. The more presence you invite into your awareness, the more presence you invite into your awareness, the more you heal. All you have to do is invite it. And you can do it through some of the methods we've discussed. Reduce anxiety by taking sugar out of your body. Where does sugar take you? It takes you into your story. Breathing deeply brings you into the present moment. It's what yoga is, bring you into the present moment. What else can we do to bring us into the present moment? Can you hear the hum of the air conditioner?
No.
Listen.
Correct. Listening. If you are listening, you have to be present. Because how can you listen if you're in your past or your future? And so listening is such a powerful key to making you present, to bring you into alignment with life. And what did I call that? It's a very wise thing I said. Alignment with life is one with life, as against NEL, which is the cause of all disease, non-alignment with life. So it's wise to be aligned with life. So the fear and anxiety that you experience is due to you making the past more important than present, or making the future more powerful than present. Now, the truth is that your point of power, and this is probably the most important saying I'm going to give you, your point of power is in the present moment. I want you to remember that. Your point of power is in the present moment. And your enemy, the thing that robs you of love, of life, of peace, of joy, is past and future. It's so obvious when I say it. I mean, you can all see it quite clearly, can't you? And yet we live our lives as if past and future is more important than love, more important than life, more important than gratitude. Because you can't experience any of that if you're not present. How can you really feel grateful if you're not here? How can you feel love? How can you feel joy if you're not present?
So basically what you are saying in a nutshell is that we must live now.
The truth is you can only ever live now.
Don't
That's the
worry
absolute
about
truth.
what's gone and what's coming.
Yeah.
Because
Your
you
past
can't
and your
change
future are
what's gonna
death.
happen. Yeah. Past and your future are death.
Death. They're
Yeah,
dead.
I know.
So why go there? They don't exist. They haven't got life in them. Have they got life in them? When are birds flying but now? When are plants growing? When is your heart beating?
And in essence, like your present, like your moment now is going to create your next move, the momentum.
There's a big, there's a
So
subtle
when it's going to happen, it's
difference.
going to happen.
There's a subtle difference, yes. There's a subtle difference between what is occurring in the moment and the present moment. This is a deep thing, so don't try and understand it. The present moment is the basket, the emptiness, which contains the things that are happening in the present moment. So this workshop is happening in the present moment, but the workshop itself is not the present moment. Now the mind will only know objects, so it only knows things that are happening. So it knows this desk, it knows your chair, it knows these words, and it says, this is the present moment. No, the present moment is the space that holds the things that are happening in the present moment. It's the emptiness behind the present moment. But as you start to change your awareness from being object-based to space-based, so there's a peace that arises inside you. And we'll do an exercise to bring this peace into your awareness. Now, you're absolutely right, because the more presence you bring into your awareness, the more peace you bring into your awareness, you create a different future. You automatically do, because the only point of power that you have is in the present moment. The only time to create is now. But when you're so busy living here, do you know what you create over here?
The same mistakes.
Exactly the same. Because you're giving energy to that, and therefore it has to repeat itself. When you are present with acceptance, and that's what the word forgiveness means. Forgiveness means what? It means to let go of.
Surrender.
Forgiveness means that you've been dragging a chair around with you for a long time. You know, I could be happy only for that. You know, I really could be free. I could run, I could dance if it wasn't for this. Do you know what it's like to go through life with this? Have you ever tried to go upstairs dragging a chair? It's bloody difficult. And also people look at you and they feel sorry for you. Do you know what it's like to have people looking at you always as if something's wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with me, except I've got this. And I can't do anything about this because it is what happened.
So then another thing,
So,
John.
just to interrupt you,
All right.
Colleen. So, forgiveness means to let go. Let go. But you won't let go while you think this is you. If you think I am the person with the chair, then you won't let go because, hell, I don't want to die. Well, I would suggest that dying is the one thing you need to do. Die to your past, die to your future so that you can truly live. Letting go of attachment to your pain, to your suffering, will happen. The distance between now and then is just more discomfort. The only thing that's ever real is presence. Presence is God, if you want to put it in that type of terms. And the more you attach yourself to your story, the more you will sin, and the more you will pay the price of sin, which is what? Pain and suffering. And no one's doing it to you. No one's doing it to you. So now getting back to the beliefs, going back to the beginning of your question. If you have an understanding that life is perfect, and nothing can ever happen to me that I will not cope with, because nothing has ever happened in the past that I couldn't cope with, because I have always coped with everything, and I will never be given anything that I can't handle in the moment. You will even die successfully. No one has died unsuccessfully. There is nothing to fear except fear itself. And then you start to hand over and trust. And I would suggest in your case, there's a lack of trust. There's a lack of stepping back into life. There's a need to be something, to control something, to fix something. You've made the in-breath more important than the out-breath. Now we can change, because your point of power is in the present moment. So it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. It doesn't matter what you've attached yourself to in the past. Your power is in the present moment, not the past. And if you hand over to the feminine aspect, which is presence, as against relying on the masculine energy, which is doing, if you stand back, step back in your consciousness, step back into the present moment and breathe out. That is the key to healing. Stepping back into the present moment and letting go. And you will find that your doing will change, and circumstances will change around you in miraculous ways, and situations and people will come to you that weren't even in your play the first time around. Because as you change here, so the world out there changes. And that is the meaning of forgiveness. Forgiveness means to let go of and let love flow. In other words, remember I said you were a knot in the hose pipe, you knotted, and as you open that, so love flows in miraculous ways, because now you are open to the flow of life instead of being protected. I need to protect my heart because it's been broken. In truth, your heart can't be broken. The only thing that ever gets broken is your thoughts, your expectations, your beliefs. That's what gets broken, is your mind. The shoulds and the coulds, that's what get affected, not your heart. Your heart is present. You think it's your heart because you feel the pain here. Because whenever you make your head more important than your heart is hurting. It wants you to come back home. Come back home to where? To presence. What has this got to do with communication? If you're not present, you can't be yourself. You can't communicate if you're not fully present. And so you will choke up on tears, because suddenly it's this shoulds and coulds and ought to haves that are more important. Here there's joy. There's you, when you are fully present, you're expressing your unique energy that the divine gave you. Every single one of you here are completely unique. Your fingerprints are not the same as your sister. There's no two human beings with the same fingerprints. There's no two human beings that are created equally. We all have a uniqueness within us. And it is such a disservice to the divine not to shine in your unique way. Absolutely unique. And so it is with this, teaching you to communicate. To communicate in terms of your own uniqueness. We've all got a unique essence to share in the world. Don't try and be like someone else. The worst thing is to think you ought to be like this. I ought to dress this way, walk this way, sound this way. No. God made you unique. The universe, divine, whatever, made you unique. And to celebrate that uniqueness and know that everything is perfect. So if you want to protect yourself, don't build bigger walls. Open your heart to love, because that is your protection. There's a saying from a book in the Course of Miracles, and the saying is that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. And what's saying there is that everything in your matrix can be threatened and will be threatened and will be taken away from you, because it's not real. But what is real cannot be threatened. The problem is we make our unrealness more important than realness. And that's the core dysfunction that we all carry around with us, and that's why we suffer. That's what Buddha said. Dukkha is attachment to your story.
What did he also say? Attachment is the pollution to love.
That's it. Blocks love. Love is all that is. Love is always here. But you just can't align yourself with it. You can't align yourself with life because you're in non-alignment with life. This is non-alignment with life. Now, This is alignment with life. You can see, life is always here and now, and this is non-alignment with life. Now, in Christian terminology, this represents the cross. And the cross represents physical story intersected with spirit. That's where the symbol comes from. It doesn't come from a guy being nailed to something. It was way before. It's been around for thousands and thousands of years. And it represents our journey in the illusion of time, intersected always by presence. You can have no experience here, if it wasn't for this.
So that's your God journey, the theta line, though.
This is theta.
Yeah.
This is reptilian brain. Any questions?
So beautifully done. Thank you.
Just to make the present moment more important than any story in your head. Now, these 60,000 thoughts won't stop automatically because they've got a huge amount of momentum. They've got 28 years of momentum and probably countless years before that. But to be patient with yourself. Infinite patience brings instant results. And slowly you won't be so attached to your story in your head. You won't be the story in your head which is perpetuated by the Skinner of people around you. It's perpetuated by the media, perpetuated by all this nonsense in the world. That's the story. But you will choose not to be in it. You can still have it around you, but you just don't believe it anymore. Because it is nonsense. If 95% of these bricks that you use to build your story every day are based in false evidence appearing real, how can you believe them? And there's a lot of neurological science behind what I'm saying. These thoughts, these memories that we have in our head are fictitious. It's false memory. Every time you remember a memory, you change a memory. Every time you pass an electrical current to remember something, in the process of remembering, you alter the neural net. And the neural nets that have been changed the most are the ones that you've accessed the most. So the memories that are most false are the ones that you most remember. Now that's a bit weird, but it's true from a neurological point of view.
So if you have memories that you've blocked out from your youth or your childhood or that,
you have suppressed them, yes.
You have suppressed them.
Yes.
So it's because they were bad memories,
yes.
so you don't want to remember
right.
them.
Yes.
So is that a good thing?
No. You see, there are two ways to dissolve the knot. One of them is when the event happens to you at the time. Something bad happens and you get knotted. You say no to that moment. Now, most of us will miss that opportunity because we won't say yes. Because we go into the reptilian brain and we say no to that event. But the second opportunity is you will suffer as a result of that knot. You will suffer, you will hold this emotion in you. And then you will suffer as a result of that knot in you. And then you can surrender to the knot. You can surrender to the negativity that's now showing up in your life. And it may well be in depression. So now you can say yes to depression. Yeah, exactly. So now you can say yes to the noise. Because you create a knot to the noise, and you're going to have to reap the opposite of that. You're going to have this person chewing in your ear for the next 2 years. So you say yes to depression. You say yes to anxiety. Because anxiety, depression is a result of a previous no, which you can't sort out because that's a previous no. That knot was created over here. You can't sort this out. But in the present moment, you're experiencing depression or pain or anxiety. Right now, you're experiencing that. So the way to heal that is to say yes to this that I'm experiencing now. I am depressed. And I'm just going to sit here on this chair and be depressed. I'm just going to sit here. Sorry, folks. It's miserable. I'm just going to sit here and be miserable. Now, be very careful when you sit here that you don't go there or there. You want to feel. You want to feel what is arising in the present moment. In the present moment, I'm feeling depressed. And I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to feel. I'm going to feel the depression. I'm going to go into, where is it? Oh, it's up here, or is it there? Oh, it's terrible. Oh. This is stupid. I'm not depressed at all. And it's gone. And it's gone forever. There was a medical doctor on one of our movies. It's a film called Hormone Truth, Hormone Lies. It's a woman talking about hormonal changes in the body and the imbalances that it brings to a lot of women. And she went through, when she went through menopause, she became extremely anxious. And she was on this heavy medication. And she knew the next step was psychiatric hospital. And she knows what happens there, and she didn't want to go in there. So she made the point to herself. She sat in her office, she came off all medication, and she said, I'm just going to be anxious. I want to feel what it feels like to be completely anxious. And she sat in her office and went through this anxiety. And within a few minutes, there was nothing there, because she let go of her story. And she allowed presence, and the anxiety was healed.
So with, say, a repressed memory, if you then later on, normally with suppressed memories, it comes back when you're ready to deal with it, or it represents itself again, if I'm not mistaken. And then if you can, say you get to that point, do you then do that, sit down and let the memory come out and feel the memory? Isn't that quite dangerous?
No. There is no memory in presence. The only thing that concerns you is not the memory, it's the effect it's having on you now.
The feeling.
It's the effect. And the effect will be in an emotional imbalance, which will be anger or depression or resentment or a phobia or anything like that. It'll come out as that. Okay. You surrender to that, not to the event. Because the event's not here anymore.
No, it's happened.
But you're surrendering to that which you are holding on to, which is creating the anxiety, the depression. And you surrender to that, to what is real now in your body.
Yeah.
That's what you surrender to. The problem is the mind will come in and it'll say, yes, you've got a right to feel this because of that. If only they hadn't done that. If only this hadn't happened. If only I hadn't done that. And now what you're doing is you're creating a loop. Because now your thoughts create your emotions. Now instead of feeding the emotion, you're creating another thought, which feeds the emotion again, which embeds it further and further into your body. And that's the downward cycle. Okay. The way to break that downward cycle is you stop the head part. And when you sit here and you're feeling anxious or depressed, you come here, below the shoulders. The feeling is here, isn't it? This is where the feeling is. It's right here. And you come into the here-ness. You see, this part of your body is present. This part of the body is your matrix. So if you can disconnect this and just come into the body and feel the feeling. Right now, what is it? How does it feel to be depressed? It feels terrible. Or for example, you want to give up smoking. And you say, well, I'm going to feel what it feels like to crave nicotine right now. I'm not going to act on it. I'm going to feel it. Is it my liver that wants it? Liver? But I'm addicted to smoke. Sorry. No. Come back into my body. Okay, now is it my, where is it? Is it my toe? Do you want the nicotine? Oh, no, not really. Hey, I don't crave nicotine anymore. Now, it may well happen that an hour or so later the craving comes back again.
Do you set it down?
You go back into it. The craving is there. You don't. So if you're angry, for example, you don't get up and punch a pillow. Okay. You feel the anger in you. You don't act, because the acting is the masculine, and I'm wanting you to align with the feminine. The feminine is the listening, and you're listening to your body right now. You're being receptive. You're in a receptive state, not in a reactive state. And in this receptive state, where's the anger? I'm hot. My skin, which is hot. Well, my hands are hot, my legs are hot, my belly is hot. Oh, it's hot. Oh, I'm so angry. Oh, yeah, where is it? It's gone. It's gone. Dissolved. And there's no more knot. There's nothing to be balanced in the future because you've balanced it now.
Do you eventually break that loop away?
You balance it there and then.
Okay.
You invite presence into your awareness. You make presence more important than your story. And presence is the divine. You think the divine can't balance anything. You think that the divine can't heal you just like that. But you have to want it more than your story.
Yeah.
If you want your story more than healing, you'll have your story. God gave you free will. You can choose. You can carry the chair around with you and moan and groan about how difficult it is to go upstairs. And I would be happy, and I would be actually, I'd have self-worth of this if I wasn't carrying this chair. It's diminishing me to have this. Your point of power is in the present moment. The only time you're attached to the chair is now. Because the past and the future do not exist. In reality, they exist in your head, I know, but not in reality. Blind is ahead of the game there.
What? Sorry.
No, you just weren't here. You just gone into the future, which is fine.
Ahead of the game. Sorry.
You're always ahead of yourself, aren't you, Blind?
I am. I'm always like, while I'm busy doing something, I'll be thinking of the next thing already.
You want to heal though, don't you?
Yes.
You want to invite presence into your awareness, don't you?
Yes.
You want that peace that you experienced the other day where your legs didn't run anymore.
Yes.
Make the present moment more important.
Yes.
And the way you do that is through listening
Yes.
and cutting out sugar. How many sweets have you had today?
Like 1,000.
1,000. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine. But the only way is to feel the discomfort of needing the sugar.
You should tell them you don't want sweets on your desk.
We normally, when we do our own catering, which we do, Liz provides beautiful, wonderful goji berries and seeds and wonderful stuff. But it's a nice temptation.
It's a very nice invitation.
But you would say there's a price to pay. There's a price, and the price is anxiety. The price is anxiety.